Hello, everyone. This is Rick, and welcome to Astral Club. This is the Akashic Records and Reincarnation. Before I get started, I just want to mention Patreon. If you'd like to support the work of Astral Club, you can do so. By joining Patreon, you get advanced videos on Sunday with no commercials, and there's an email where we can talk back and forth and answer questions and share some experiences. If that's something you're interested in, there'll be a link in the description. Next up, private astral projection lessons. If you'd like to learn to astral project or improve your current projection skills, be glad to work with you. If you'd like some information, you will find it in the description where you can request additional information. Reincarnation. This has been probably one of the most controversial topics that I and others have discussed. Many people believe in reincarnation, including myself. Of course, that belief just basically says that we have had many previous lives, which we are not currently aware of, and that we come here to learn a variety of lessons in the very harsh physical school. There are some beliefs that reincarnation is a forced thing, that somehow you are forced back into another body, kicking and screaming. In fact, in Scientology, there is a belief that there are implant stations on Mars, and I believe Venus too, where the souls are drawn up after they've passed, and they are then programmed for their next life on Earth, where they're lied to and told all kinds of misinformation, and then forced into new bodies. I have never found any evidence of any force in that sense of being. So that leaves us with an interesting question. If you talk to people who, your friends, family, ask them, if you have a choice to reincarnate next time, let's say, would you choose to come back or would you rather not come back? You'll find that there's a large percentage of people who say, oh, no way do I want to come back into the physical again. As a matter of fact, I once saw a survey that was done. There were two different surveys. One was, would you be interested in going down in a shark cage in Australia where great white sharks circle the cage and try to get at you? I recall there was something like 20% said they'd be willing to do that. However, if you do your own little survey, I'll bet you'll find that of your friends and family, you probably have more people who'd be willing to go down in essentially what is nothing more than a bait cage, while a large toothy fish tries to eat them, rather than make the choice of coming back for another lifetime. So, if there isn't force, yet we seem to have people here in the physical who are reluctant, to say the least, to agree to come back for another life. So how do we solve this particular puzzle? I decided to do some research in the Akashic records. And I did this a few years ago, but I didn't share the information because at that time I'd made a reincarnation associated episode. And while the vast majority of people, of course, were very receptive to it, there was a significant minority that attacked me as if somehow I'm responsible for the reincarnation cycle. I mean, talk about shooting the messenger. So I just kind of sat on this information. But I figure I'll bring it out now and people can say whatever they like. So when I projected to the Akashic records, I was lucky because there was someone there waiting for me which was very nice, because I've heard stories about people who travel to the Akashic records and they're kind of on their own, or that those who are in the records are ignoring them as if they're beneath them. So I was very lucky that there was a guide there waiting for me. And I asked them, I'd like to access information on reincarnation, both starting with myself in this lifetime, as well as, the basic process itself. Trying to get at the idea is, if it's not forced, then how are people coming back? Well, I recall as I went to this station where I was instructed to just think about what I was interested in. And when I did, I was confronted with a lot of images. And at first, I was kind of overcome. But then I learned that you had to just concentrate on one image at a time. And that when you see something that was interesting to you, then you just concentrate on that image. And then it blew up and you were able to find yourself inside, essentially, that image, as if you were a third party watching what was going on. And I recall that when I was sick, very sick as a 1-year-old, and I was running a very high temperature, very sick. The doctor had instructed my mother to give me an alcohol bath to try to bring my temperature down. And he was going to be over to our house as quickly as he could. Yes, in those days, back in the 60s, when I was a kid, doctors made house calls, if you can believe that. While I watched my younger self, obviously suffering with this very high temperature, I also saw my spirit hovering above my sick body, which was a very fascinating thing. My astral self from the future watching my astral self from the past. Now, I was able to see it, but it wasn't necessarily able to see me, or at least didn't notice me. And I was able to tap into that consciousness that I had as a 1-year-old, which was fascinating again, because for a moment or two, I had dual consciousness. The consciousness I had when I was 1 and my present consciousness. And I was looking down at myself through my 1-year-old spiritual eyes, and my spirit was looking at it very clinically. It was very divorced from the situation. It was looking down at itself, my younger self, without any particular attachment, which I found fascinating. But then I also started thinking, anyone who's watched videos or read books on NDEs, or near-death experiences, often read that a person who passes away on the operating table, or from a heart attack, or from any number of different mishaps, often looks down at their body in a very clinical fashion. You don't often notice a lot of emotion. If you do, it's generally of the what'll happen to my children variety, not so much about the body there below you. It's almost like you're looking at somebody else. So I started thinking about that and started examining more about the records themselves. And it seems that, and I can bear this out with my astral projections as well, and I'm sure some of you can as well. When you're out of your physical body for any length of time, and when I've had astral time travel into the future, I've had what seemed to me to be very long stretches of time away from my physical body. You find yourself in a spiritual state where you don't feel cold anymore. You don't feel hot. You're not hungry. You don't feel sick. You don't feel pain. You still remember these problems, these discomforts, but they seem distant. They seem far away. They seem like there's something that somebody else actually experienced. And I think that is that ability, that feeling, that phenomena, I believe, based on my research in the records, as well as my experience on the astral, that the longer you're away from your physical lifetime, the more you concentrate on loved ones. Love is remembered very clearly. But all those discomforts tend to fade into the background. They're just not that important anymore. And I think what happens is in the physical, the ego is very much in control. And the ego only understands the physical world. It is very keen to detect problems in the physical world and discomforts in the physical world. So when you ask a physical person, how'd you like to come back again in another lifetime? The first things they think about are, oh, geez, I've had so many problems. I had problems as a child. There were bullies. There was other mistreatment. I've had problems as an adult, a variety of illnesses, and all these other things. And so the ego is very conscious of this as you're dwelling inside your physical body. So it's very easy to understand why the ego, speaking out of your mouth, says, no, I don't want to come back. I'm not interested in coming back. And that reminds me of the experience I had in planning for this incarnation. I didn't want to go further back than I had previously in the Akashic records because I didn't want to get lost in all those other lifetimes. I was interested in the choices of this lifetime. And I recalled, I won't get into a lot of details, but I recall my last lifetime. I certainly had it better than most people, but I had my share of suffering and pain and sickness. And certainly it wasn't a pleasant experience. But when I passed over and I'd spent a period of time on the astral, I started looking at it from a much more distant or clinical viewpoint. I started thinking about the lessons I'd learned, what more I'd like to learn. And then I also thought about those I loved and that I could help them, and they me, by going back into another lifetime. I could also assist others in learning about spirituality or, in particular, astral projection. And those were the thoughts that caused me to take on another astral projection. Nobody forced me. I recall some advice being given to me, but I can't place the face anymore. It was wise and I trusted it implicitly. But the choice was mine. I picked my own father. I picked my own mother. And I incarnated precisely when I was supposed to in a hospital in my small town. So based on my own experiences, I believe that reincarnation is not a trap. I don't agree with that supposition. It is a school, and it's a tough school, especially once you find yourself back in your physical body. But I think the solution to the eternal question, because after all, everyone you talk to who says, no, I wouldn't come back, is here now. So if reincarnation is an actuality, then it's extremely doubtful that this was their first lifetime. Indeed, it's quite likely that they had many lifetimes before that. And if they weren't forced by some evil deity into a physical body, then they made that choice. And I think the best explanation for that, based on my experience in the records and just astral projecting in general, especially long-term projections into the future, is that all of those bothersome and annoying things that happen to us in the physical matter to us a lot while we're in our physical body. But once we discard that body, either temporarily in an NDE or astral projection, or when we permanently pass over, that the physical is nothing more. It's remembered as a dream, and the rough spots are kind of evened out. They don't matter to you like they do now, and that to me answers the question as to why, despite what people will say, that most likely they will be back again. Just as I came back because I believe that I would have the opportunity to continue to learn, to be with my loved ones, and of course to do things like Astralclub, where I could share this information with many other people. So let me know what you think. I'm very interested in as to your comments and questions about reincarnation or anything else associated with that. And if you liked this episode, please hit the like button, share it with those of like mind, subscribe if you haven't already. Make sure that bell's on so you know when the Wednesday afternoon and Saturday morning episodes come on and are released on YouTube. And as always, I'm Rick, and I will see you on the astral plane.